Greetings, everybody, and welcome for Tri-State Trust for Tuesday, July the 7th. We are joined now by Pride of Alexandria, Missouri, 1976 graduate of Clark County High School, Kirby Cannon, who has gone to all kinds of different success levels within college football coaching, and he is right now currently the defense coordinator, I think the second time around now at Northern Michigan, which is kind of bookend a really interesting and unique career, which started humbly with Kirby working his way up. And Coach Cannon, first and foremost, when did you kind of know this was path that you wanted to take? Because football coaching at the college level is not, as you well know, easy business.
No, it's not. And, I've survived 37 years in it, and that's amazing. Only been fired once, which percentage-wise, that's not too bad. But I was really a baseball mentality guy, growing up, played in youth leagues, in Wayland and Keokuk and some of that. And then when I went to Clark County, my freshman year, the only sport I played was baseball. And then at the end of that spring, it was a flood year, and I think we only played 6 games, and they dropped baseball. So I was kind of a man without a for a little while. Continued playing some leagues, but then got the football bug, so to speak, in my junior year and played 2 years. And, was recruited by, at the time, Southwest Missouri State. It was a different type of recruiting in those days, as you know. I mean, limited amount of film. But a referee in a game versus Scotland County thought I played well enough to call his buddy, Bill O'Neill, at Southwest Missouri State, who was the D coordinator there. And, I enjoyed some successes as a junior in football and basketball. And then, my senior year, that's when that connection came with Southwest Missouri State. Also recruited a little bit by Eastern Illinois and by Northern Iowa. But I wanted to play baseball. So I did the football recruiting part, ended up at Southwest and begged my way onto the baseball team there. And but during that time, I knew that I wanted to stay close to the game, baseball or football at that time. Had a very good career baseball-wise there. Not as much. Got behind a great player. Was an All-American for us, and but I had a good football experience and a great baseball experience there. And along the way, just decided, hey, I really want to coach. A lot of the people in my life that were influential to me, I felt like I was a little bit rescued, out of Alexandria and out of Clark County. It wasn't a great football program at that time. Had really just kind of started a few years before that. So, Coach Cassidy, my football coach at Clark County, and Coach McCarty, my basketball coach, were believers in me. And that's what triggered that idea that somebody believed I could do something. I did those things and kind of started out just wanting to give back and also to keep a close relationship with the games.
Kirby, you did your dues paying, and obviously you did a lot of dues paying around here with stops at Truman State, which at the time was Northeast Missouri State. And also, earlier in your career at Western Illinois. First of all, I want to go back to Kirksville with you because that really it seems like that's really where a lot of that dues paying was done. What was that like at that time? Did that because you wore a number of hats in Kirksville over the course of that time, did that really kind of reinforce the notion that you found your calling?
Yeah, I had coached 2 years of high school ball. I went to Iowa State, had a very good experience there. 1 year as a graduate assistant, 1 year as recruiting coordinator. Took a job with my old offensive line coach back at Southwest Missouri State at North Central College, the defending national title team in Division III. Went over there for 4 years. Coached football and baseball. We were the first team in Illinois to go to the Division III World Series when I was there. So, it was a great situation. Loved living in Naperville. Loved coaching both sports, which, Division III kind of allowed that. But had a chance to come back to Northeast Missouri State. Our coach at that time was Jack Ball, who has passed away since, but was a tremendous influence on me and taught me that you could have some fun coaching, and that was important. But I get there, and one day, I'm there as a defensive back coach, and he brings me into the office and says, "Hey, we've got a problem." Who knows in coaching? So I was like, "Well, Coach, what's the problem?" He says, "I'm going to need you to be the interim baseball coach at Northeast Missouri State." And I was like, "Interim baseball coach?" And things were kind of up in the air at Northeast at that time. They'd changed the academic world there quite a bit, and I ended up replacing Sam Nugent. I was going to be a interim situation, so I did both Division II football and Division II baseball, and that was quite a challenge. And because you need fall baseball and you need spring football, and I was busy. I was very busy, and as it turned out, that interim tag ended up lasting years. But I got a chance as Craig Nesbitt, the current head coach at Truman, left our staff in 1992 to go to Columbia Hickman High School. I was promoted to defensive coordinator there at Northeast by Eric Holm. And we had a great program under Eric there, and that we brought in good kids, quality students. They had to be that for admission standards. And then we went to the Division II playoffs 3 times. So if it wasn't for Pittsburgh State, I think we would have been maybe, deep into the playoffs our first year in 90. That was a special team. But I enjoyed it at Northeast. Eric got a little frustrated, I think, and that, we were putting up good numbers and going to the playoffs under difficult conditions. And he couldn't get a sniff at my alma mater or at Southern Illinois. So when Northern opened up, I went to Northern Michigan with him. And I spent 2 years here. We went back-to-back 7-3s. And Randy Ball at Western Illinois called me. I knew those guys very well because they had the Northeast background themselves, and Coach Craddock had been there. And so I get a chance to come back there. Randy, I turned it down like 2 or 3 times, but Randy just kept leaning on me, and Dion Melvin leaned on me, and Bill Wilt leaned on me, and they were convinced we could win a national title at Western. So I took the pay cut and jumped up the division and had 2 fabulous years on the field at Western Illinois, back-to-back gateway championships at that time. But the tri-state area is me. That's home. And getting a chance to go to Northeast was important for me, and then getting a chance to come back and coach at Western Illinois was important. And for I think 2 days, when Randy took the Missouri State job, I was with him. And but at that time, I was also interviewing for the University of Missouri-Rolla job, and got a chance to be the head coach there for the first time in my career. And I recruited quite a few tri-state area guys. And the one that I wanted to make sure I mentioned, because he was critical in us turning that program from just being non-competitive into being good, and they have maintained that level of excellence. Ashton Gronwell from Carthage, Illinois. And, he was just a fabulous player, a fabulous person. And I enjoyed, going back up to Carthage and reacquainting with Coach Unruh, and they were hitting a hot streak themselves. But he was a tri-state area guy that really, really boosted our program at Rolla.
You beat me to the punch, because I was going to get to Ashton, the guy who was supposedly too small to play football coming out of Carthage. And man, I'm probably as good a return specialist and breakaway guy who actually had a tryout with the Bears. I mean, that was a career he had with you guys. That had to be fun, just to be a part of that and to see a kid who wouldn't have gotten a chance somewhere else to have the kind of success he had with you.
Well, the one thing about Ashton, and sometimes in college recruits don't give credit to these guys as much as we used to, is he was just a fabulous football player. He was a running back primarily at Carthage, went into the state championships a couple of times, I believe, there. And he was just well-rounded. I did suggest to him, that he was going to need to move to wide receiver, to have the best chance to be a dominating player. And I was at one of the Western Illinois practices. They were getting ready to play in the playoffs, and Coach Patterson, a dear friend of mine, was there, and I kind of hedged up to him and I said, "Are you going to offer Ashton Grunwald?" And he says, "I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that." and they were just deliberating what to do with him. And I think that's really where he wanted to go. 15, 20 miles down 136, and but Coach Patterson just told me that they thought they could get a bigger back. And, at that level, you don't do as much projecting position-wise as you do at our level and at Division III. So when he said, I don't know that we're going to get to him, with the scholarship offer, I just left practice and drove immediately to Carthage, and it matched up well. And Ashton wanted to be, and he did end up having a degree in mechanical engineering. And so I was over there, and I literally lived in Carthage for a while. 3 or 4 days later, I was at my parents' house in Cahokia, on and off. And I don't know what the rule was in those days for contacts, but I stretched it, and came in a couple times and didn't even see him, just to, make sure that he knew that I was there. And then I saw him hit 2 clutch free throws in a basketball game against Hamilton, I think, great rivalry in those days. And, he was just as calm as could be. And I said, this is my man, but even then, he ended up improving so much and just being a great, great player. He could score. I think he holds, I don't know how many records at Missouri Rolla, but he scored in so many different ways. He kickoff returns, punt returns, passes. We would hand it to him. He was just a dominating player. And again, just a great person too. I mean, he made us better in every way you can think of down there.
From a standpoint of career legacy, and I know you're not a guy that's, obsessed with that, but by the same token, you kind of hit on it. You took engineering school in the middle of nowhere and turned it into a football school, and now it's a really good ball school. How much pride do you take in that, Kirby? Just the whole, change of narrative in Rolla?
Well, I think everywhere you put your roots down, and I was the head coach there for 11 years. And then we had some tough years there first, because you just don't do it with anybody there academically. And you can, try to recruit guys that may be there a year or two, but typically they're not going to, win games for you. But, I still am happy that they're winning. Andy Ball, who coached with me at Rolla, and is the son of Randy Ball, who I coached for. He's still down there, so we have a lot of communications. If we run into an engineering hardcore guy, I send those names down there, just hoping that they continue to recruit them. And my wife is from that area, so we get back and I see the improvements in that program and in that. University even. It's and I'm very proud that they're successful. But I'm happy with Truman winning. If I lean one way or the other, I'm just hoping that Rolla beats them. But I still have Greg Nesbitt and Eric Holm is over there also, and Kellen Nesbitt. I knew as a little child really. So I pull for them, and North Central winning the national title this year. Beating Mount Union and Whitewater. You can't have a better year than that. I still stay in touch with them. The AD there, Jimmy Miller, who's a Roxana, Illinois guy. He's the AD now. He was a running back, wide receiver, slash type guy for us. So, I stay in touch with all of them, even Austin Peay. Austin Peay was a disaster to my career. I had left Central Michigan. I was very happy there. I was working with Dan Enos, who was a great friend of mine who had coached with me at Northern Michigan for a year. We were very close, and I got a little stale like coaches do at Rolla, and I just said, there's a chance to go coach against the Hawkeyes. We beat them up there one year, so it was a good move. But I got the itch to be a head coach again, and Austin Peay. I think coaches fall into this problem. I rebuilt one at Rolla, and that was a lot of their interest in me down there was that. I wasn't going to leave Central, on a short-term deal, so I signed a 6-year contract there, which is unheard of. I had to get permission from the state of Tennessee to give one that long, but I knew it was going to be a major, major challenge. And they had a lot of potential at Austin P, but they had just come back from being a Pioneer League school that didn't give scholarships, and they gave them back. But it was a basketball mentality down there. But Coach Luce, who was the legendary basketball coach, there was the AD that hired me there, and as long as he was AD, I figured this is going to be okay. It's going to take some time. They didn't want me to recruit criminals. They didn't want me to recruit guys who couldn't succeed academically there, and I knew it was going to be a slow process because we're very downtrodden. But it was, hey, I'm Kirby Cannon. I rebuilt Rolla. I'll get it done over there too. And then I ended up with 3 ADs and 2 presidents in less than 3 years there. The message got lost. Suddenly, we were coming off horrible winless seasons and 1 win, and they wanted to do better. And I understood that, but I also knew that, I was in a situation where not much had fundamentally changed about the program. We were still under scholarship. We had a hard time recruiting out-of-state guys, and those things that I needed and thought I needed to win, they weren't willing to do. So I more or less forced a buyout there, and I don't regret that, but I'm happy. Getting back to your original question, my seniors. I only had 2 recruiting classes there, but my seniors ended up winning the OVC championship, last year. So things have turned out right, down there also. And I have some dear friends still at Austin P. But I got a chance. Our head coach here, Kyle Nystrom, and I coached together at Central Michigan. And most of the time you hire guys that played for you or that you've coached with. So I got a chance to come up here. And about that time in my life, after bouncing around to a lot of different places, I said, I'm going to include quality of life in my decision as to what I do next. And I had an opportunity to go to University of Illinois as the high school relations director under Bill Cubitt, but that didn't work out real well for Bill. So I had a chance to come up here and coach with a dear friend and live in a place that, with winters being very challenging, there's nothing like the summers, and I enjoy living up here. I never want to say, hey, this is my last stop, but if it's not my last stop, it's probably my next to last stop. And I have a lot of friends in the business that they're always wanting to get the gang back together, and we'll see. But you have to give a lot of life up for college coaching. I mean, the recruiting is difficult. More competitive than it's ever been. Kids are different in a way that it used to be just money. If you give me the biggest scholarship, I'm coming. But anymore, I think they're smarter. I think they understand that it's a lifelong decision that you're making. But they'll make decisions that don't make sense to me. But still, I'm willing to do that, and I'm very healthy. So it's a situation where I may coach till I'm 90. I don't know.
Kirby, one of the reasons we do this is because we like to see that it doesn't matter where you come from in this world, you can go on and achieve really well. I mean, I don't know that Alexandria, Missouri was a hotbed of college coaching at any point, but you've kind of shown that can be done. You kind of alluded to it throughout this as well. Yours is a relationship business. Is that the most important piece of advice you'd offer an aspiring coach, that those relationships, those friendships, those people you come up with, they are life's blood of what your career can be and will be during the course of it?
Absolutely. And, I've always kind of considered myself a little bit of an underdog, growing up. I think I was the first quarterback to start at Clark County from Alexandria. I'm not so sure I wasn't the first basketball player to start at Clark County. The consolidation of that school had not occurred that much before my time. And there were still some of those. There was the Wayland gang, the St. Patrick gang, the Cahokia people, and it was interesting. But I think the value of education and teachers who care, because there was a little bit of everyone in my family had ended up working at steel castings, I think, in Keokuk, and that was my orientation there. That you went to high school, you graduated, and you got a job in one of the factories in Keokuk. And that didn't seem like a bad deal. But I remember my dad telling me one time, hey, you play ball and I'll work. And, that worked out pretty good. But I had teachers in elementary school that saw something in me and weren't afraid to tell me that, they thought I had the academic ability first, and then as the athletic stuff started to show up, you know, it was just some people that believed in me. And I think one of the most powerful things is that you can tell someone as a teacher or as a coach is that you have belief in them and their potential. And I'll never forget that.
Last one for you, because you've kind of touched on it too, about sort of, bowing your neck and trying to ride upstream in this business, which, you have sourced being where you're from and what you've done. You still carry so much of that with you today, don't you, Kirby? Just the mentality and the blue collar ethic that kind of permeated Clark County with your upbringing and with everything else. I mean, that still matters and is part of your success today, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think that mentality goes a long ways in any profession, because you do hit some walls. You do hit some people that are not believers in you. And I saw a lot of not successful people, growing up. And you have to have that, that idea that you will be willing to swim upstream, and you're going to have a few setbacks. It was a goal in my life to always to coach for the Iowa Hawkeyes. I mean, they're right next door to me. My first college football game that I ever saw, my Uncle Bob, who was involved with Jimison Chevrolet in those days. And, there was some car dealership routines there. And Keokuk had, from the 1950s, they had a habit of sending people up there. Now, from a recruiting standpoint, Coach Cummings didn't quite think I was good enough. I wish I would have been a little bit younger and maybe had a chance to convince Coach Fry that I was a guy they should put a scholarship on. But, that was one of my goals, and was to end up coaching there. And I ended up coaching 3 times against them. Lost twice at Iowa State and beat them at Central. But, getting back to your question, just belief in yourself. A good work ethic, which I think my dad passed that down, and my mother did too. What do you do in the morning? You get up and you go to work, and you give the man what he wants, and he gives you what you want on Fridays. And my dad was involved with, and my Uncle Keith was also with the Steelworkers Union. And, that was a big part of my life. Is, are we going to go on strike? Are we not? We're going to give concessions. Are we not? But, in my dad's world, he didn't measure a man's success by his billfold size. Is he the type of guy that treats family right? He gets up in the morning, he puts in 8 hours of hard work, and then he goes in and he's a great dad. And that's, can't tell you how valuable that has been, that blue collar, you work for a living, go out and do something. You only get one chance. Try to do something great. Don't shoot too low. And all those things have worked out very well. I'm very happy. As a person, I don't have a lot of regrets, and it's a good situation.